When you think about love, what comes to mind? Think of some of your favorite love stories from books, movies, shows, or even life. What is something extreme that one of those characters did for love? Bella turned into a vampire so she could be with Edward forever. Emperor Shah Jahan built the Taj Mahal for his wife to show how much that he loved her. The House of Candles from Meredith Grey and Derek Shepherd on Grey's Anatomy, my personal favorite. Romeo and Juliet, Jack and Rose on the Titanic, the list goes on. Whether you're into love stories or not, there is something about them we all can relate to. We all want to feel loved by other people. And we've all seen extreme gestures of love portrayed in books and on film, but sometimes we see them happen in real life too. Sometimes we do ridiculous things for love, but there's a not so ridiculous truth underneath these ridiculous gestures. Deep down, we all understand that love isn't just an emotion you feel. Love isn't just a word that you say. Love is something that you demonstrate with your actions. But sometimes the people we love don't do this very well. At least, not in our opinion. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love us don't show it with their actions. One time early on in college, my boyfriend at the time was away at school. It was Valentine's Day, and me being the super sweet girlfriend that I was, I sent a care package. I bought $50 worth of mugs, candies, things that he needed, and material to make the box just about as extra as I am. Inside was painted red and pink, had little hearts all around the edges, with all the things I loved about him, and it cost just about as much to ship this thing as it was to make it, but to me, it was worth it. You want to know what I got? A link to a cheesy YouTube song. That's it. And here's the worst part. He told me that he could not afford to come home and take me out to dinner, but he went skiing by himself instead. Yeah, needless to say, we didn't talk for a week. Well, he tried, but I didn't respond. I wasn't mad that he didn't send me a massive care package back. I was upset not in the same amount of care that went into his response as I put into mine. I wanted my gift in return to be even. Have you ever wanted to get even with someone who hurt you? I mean, they hurt you, so it's only fair that they experience some remorse in return, right? I mean, I get it. I have been there. When we're hurt, we want revenge, we want consequences, and we want justice. But how does all of this tie together? Talking about justice can be tough. When we try to define justice, many of us define it as punishment. We see it as the thing that happens to people when they get caught doing something wrong, like going to jail or getting a speeding ticket. We see getting justice as the same thing as revenge against someone who hurt us. Sometimes our desire for justice is well-intentioned, sometimes it's misguided, and sometimes it is a little bit of both. But when we realize our idea of justice is actually just about revenge, there is a good chance that we have gotten it all wrong. There is a saying, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. It's a reminder that when we're all trying to get revenge every time that we're hurt, the cycle of pain never ends. But what is the alternative? What do we do when something unjust happens to us? How should we respond when someone really hurts us? And how do we balance forgiving others while standing up for ourselves? And is it possible that getting justice is more than just punishing people who've hurt us? For the next few weeks, we're going to talk about what God says justice is and isn't, and we'll see what justice and love have to do with each other too. We are going to talk about justice by taking a look at a family from the Old Testament that not only experienced but also carried out unspeakable injustice. At the center of this story is a guy named Joseph. Joseph was the second youngest sibling in a family with 11 brothers. As one of the youngest of the bunch, the Bible seems to suggest that Joseph was kind of a tattletale. His father often asked him to keep an eye on his older brothers. Joseph's older brothers were actually his half-brothers. Joseph and his younger brother, Benjamin, had a different mother from the older ones, and this created some serious sibling rivalry. Joseph's brothers were convinced that their father, Jacob, loved Joseph more than them. And guess what? They were right. Jacob's favoritism created an us versus them mentality in their home. There was already tension in the family, but Jacob, the dad, reinforced us versus them mentality by giving Joseph a custom made coat. Imagine your parents bought your little brother Nike Air Force Ones and made you wear the knockoffs. Jacob's gift stirred up a lot of jealousy and made an even bigger mess. Don't we all want to be a part of a family or a friend group in which there is unconditional love? We want to be accepted for who we are, free of prejudice, biases, and favoritism. But Jacob didn't do that. He allowed his personal preference to impact how he loved his children. And maybe you've experienced something like this in your own life. Maybe you've been treated unfairly simply because of where you come from. Whatever the reason, Joseph's dad created an unhealthy family dynamic. But to be honest, Joseph did not help the situation. Let's see how Joseph added to this. Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it." His brothers said to him, "Do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us?" And they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he had said. Then he had another dream, and he told it to his brothers. "Listen," he said, "I had another dream, and this time the sun and moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me." When he told his father as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, "What is this dream you had? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you?" His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. Now, before we keep going, let me just say the Bible isn't always the best at giving us every detail. Sometimes this is the intention, though, because it allows the reader, us in this case, to come up with their own interpretation. And when it comes to the story, there is a lot of ways to read it, and we don't know exactly why Joseph decided to share his dream. It seems kind of reckless to me, but what we can't dispute, though, is that God revealed something important through Joseph's dreams. And it's true that God was speaking through Joseph in his dreams. And it's true that God showed Joseph his future, that one day he would be in a position of authority over his brothers. But that's not really the point. The problem wasn't that Joseph had these dreams in the first place. It was the way that Joseph bragged about his prophetic dreams. The way that he had shared his dreams with his brothers lacked candor. We sort of defined love a few minutes ago, but let's see if we can define it with a little bit more clarity with the help of some scripture. In the New Testament of the Bible, a long time after Joseph and his brothers lived, a guy named Paul wrote a letter to the Christians in the city of Corinth. In that letter, he gave us a definition of what love is. "If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have faith that can move mountains but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to the hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, and it does not boast, and it is not proud. It does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, and it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres." Joseph was like a clanging cymbal to his brothers. Yeah, he could see the future, but without love, his dream meant nothing to his brothers. In fact, they grew to hate Joseph. As we'll see over the next few weeks, Joseph's lack of love in this moment set off a painful chain of events. His brothers were filled with hatred for Joseph and the injustice that their father's favoritism. Joseph was arrogant and insensitive to the ways his brothers were hurting, and in this family, there was quite a lot of hurt. As we've said, when people get hurt, they usually want justice, something that is fair, lawful, or right. But justice can't be the same thing as revenge. If everyone in Joseph's family who had been hurting tried to take revenge on each other, it would never end. Their family did not need any more vengeance. They needed more love. But not the kind of love that is only communicated through words. They needed love communicated through actions, like Paul just described in 1 Corinthians. Because justice is not revenge. Justice is love in action. And you may not have 11 brothers who hate you like Joseph did, but I know that you know what it's like to hurt and be hurt by others. Too often it is easier to act unjustly than it is to act with love. In your relationships, what ways do you need to choose love instead of revenge? Humility instead of pride. Kindness and gentleness instead of cruelty. Are you like Joseph, creating conflict with others because of your lack of love? And what about in your communities? What are ways that you can show love in your school, neighborhood, and those around you? Even if you didn't cause the problem, how can you put love into action to help solve it? Is there a conflict which you can restore peace? Is there a need that you can help meet? And in the world, like Joseph's family and his father, Jacob's favoritism and brokenness caused conflict and division between Joseph and his brothers. When you look at the world around you, do you see conflict and division there too? Throughout history, there have been leaders who have dreams for the world that were rooted in God's justice and love, especially when hatred and division have that in common. In the United States in the 1950s and 1960s, we saw a historic movement that fought against racial injustice. In that time, many voices rose up to address the racial divisions in America and called for love and justice. Probably one of the most famous of these voices was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He was a pastor who had a God-given dream and knew how to share it in the love, not in the way that was an arrogant or self-seeking. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream inspired others to fight for justice by turning their love for others into action. So what's your dream? Where do you want to see more love and less hatred? You don't have to wait for God to speak to you in your sleep. You can start dreaming right now. And what if you wrote a kind letter or text to someone who you don't always agree with? What if you try to find some common ground with someone who is different than you? Or offer to tutor a child of a single parent who's been struggling to maintain some balance? Doing something kind for a sibling just because. What is your dream? And what can you do to make it a reality? In Joseph's story, God gave him a miraculous prophetic dream. Although Joseph selfishly mishandled that dream, the message of the dream was rooted in love and justice. Joseph just missed it. In the next few weeks, we'll discover more about what Joseph's dream meant. But for now, we're going to keep asking the question, if justice is love in action, how can my actions demonstrate more of God's love?